Hi Philip, welcome to Norway.
Hi Rebecca, thank you very much for the invitation.
Nice to see
Pleasure
you
to be here.
again. And you had a great presentation today, and I hope that as many people as possible go to see it with the technicality of law and the World Health Organization, the new amendments, the pandemic treaty that they're trying to impose on member states. You were talking about the conflict between constitutions and the World Health Organization. Can you please explain in short, what do you mean about conflict with World Health Organization and constitutions of nation states?
Sure. We are talking here about two new international agreements. One is completely new, the new pandemic treaty, and the other one are the international health regulations, which exist already since 2005 in the present form, and they shall be amended significantly. And what I was saying is that the international health regulations that were so far by the constitution of WHO considered to be just technical standard agreements about certain pandemic medical aspects, that they are in fact, they have become, with these new amendments, they have become truly substantial and important provisions that will change ultimately our constitutions. And I have shown in which aspects they will change our constitutions. And what I say is, if we are going to change our constitutions so fundamentally, then we have to apply the procedure that is applicable for changing constitutions. And of course, this is a highly complex and abstract matter. So what I did, or what I do, is I take these provisions chapter by chapter, analyze them, and look at how strong do these provisions, these proposals, will have an impact on the basic pillars of our democracy. If I speak about basic pillars, then it is things that if we take it away, there cannot be democracy.
Like freedom.
Like freedom of speech, or like the protection of human rights, or like an effective system of checks and balances, meaning that there must always be the possibility to challenge the decision of an authority in case things go wrong.
And you cannot do that with the World Health Organization because they're not elected.
Yes.
They don't have a constitution, as you remarked in your...
They do have a constitution, but in this constitution there's no mechanism of checks and balances.
That was it, yes.
Yes.
And what does that mean?
Well, we all have in our constitutions the system that powers must be balanced out. That was ultimately the success of the French Revolution. Before the French Revolution, we had emperors. They could just do whatever they wanted without any reasonable explanation. People had to do it. After the French Revolution in France, they established the system of the three powers. The legislative power, creating the law, then the government, being in power of enacting and performing what the parliament had provided as laws, and then ultimately the judicial branch, the courts. So the purpose of it is that each of these branches has the equal value, the equal power. Now with WHO, if the international health regulations and the new pandemic treaty would become force, legally binding, that would mean that whatever WHO would declare or decide, a new pandemic, new public health emergency of international concern.
Of any kind.
Of any kind. And as a consequence of that, they would then provide recommendations which will become legally binding. So if they would say at least 70% of the entire population must undergo twice per year such and such treatment, like mRNA-based vaccines. And in addition, they all will also be entitled to have a monopoly of information, a monopoly about information. So that would then mean, okay, they have ultimately the role of an emperor.
I was just going to ask, would this be the global emperor of all member states? There wouldn't be any sovereignty left in any member state, in any Western
In theory,
country.
I must give Cedros a point, a credit. You know, in theory, member states will remain sovereign. In theory, they could then say, okay, we don't agree with WHO, we have our own scientists, we don't see that there's a true pandemic, and these recommendations are totally wrong, so let's leave WHO as a sovereign act of sovereignty. Yes.
You can leave the World Health Organization if you would like. What would happen?
Look, this is theory. Of course, what would happen? I can speculate only. You know, of course, you can submit a notice of exiting the WHO. But, I mean, given the power structures as they are today and the information as it is provided today, you have to be clear. It requires a strength of political decision making that was never seen in the past 4 years to say, we will just walk away. This is total theory. This is an illusion to think we can just do it. Having a World Bank that can impose more and higher interest payments on all the loans, and having the United Nations that can impose any kind of, or make life more difficult, traveling and so on. So it is an illusion to think, okay, if we miss it now, we can walk out later. Yes, we might do so, but it will be more and more difficult. The point is, if we look at these international health regulations, they interfere with the most important elements of our constitution. If I speak like that, people fall asleep. Well, 1789, people killed each other for that, to get it, to be allowed to speak out what they wanted to say, not to have to do something that was harmful, to be given a voice at the court. They were ready to die for that. Now we think today this is granted forever, and we let WHO make these proposals that they want to push through. And at the end, whenever something has to do with pandemic, there will be no court whatsoever that will effectively protect our human rights. And I'm talking here about most significant human rights, to make free choice, to choose against harmful medication or experimental substances. They will come up again with new substances which were developed within 2 or 3 months' time, and sell us these drugs, these toxins, as being the sole way out of a pandemic. If I see that, I want the right to say no. And if there is a law that would bind me to take it, then I want to see a judge that helps me. And this is not foreseen. Respectively, we feed the judges with information from WHO which tells him only everything is safe and effective. And we are the organization that has all the expert knowledge. The judges are stupid. They have to follow the recommendations of WHO as well. So there will be no protection of you, of nobody, right? And so all of these, we have more pillars of which are the fundamental basis for any democracy, but these are the most important ones: freedom of speech, then separation of powers, effective checks and balances, but also the rule of law. You cannot just call out a pandemic just because you think, oh, we have a climate change going on. CO2, One Health concept, right?
I wanted to ask you about that because as you were made aware throughout this panel debate, we had, I don't remember, time flies so fast, I don't remember exactly which date it was, but Norwegian politicians gave away their power from parliament to the health bureaucracy to make decisions on lockdowns, to make this, like they expanded the pandemic law and made it into law. and it doesn't have to go through the parliament to be implemented in Norway. So they kind of, I wouldn't say a preparation for the World Health Organization, but I would say sort of like a security net if the World Health Organization treaty and amendments don't go through, because they already secured that part of it in Norway. And as we see, climate change is the biggest thing that they're trying to impose people to be afraid of at the moment.
Yes,
and
right.
I saw in your presentation that you mentioned climate lockdowns.
Yes.
So would the World Health Organization be able to say, the air is too toxic, we're shutting it down?
Yes. And the way how it would be done is like this. Number one, concept One Health. You will find it in the new pandemic treaty. Right now, it's, I think, Article 5. It is interconnected with the international health regulations, Article 12 and Article 6. So it could give rise to a declaration of a pandemic. As of that moment on, WHO would have the competence to issue recommendations that newly shall become legally binding. Recommendation can be, we recommend to member states to immediately shut down the entire economy, because this is the only way to lower the CO2 level. You must do it at least for 2 months or 3 months, otherwise there will be no impact. Yes, they could do so. This is right.
I see that we're running out of time, Philip, so I just want to ask you one last question that I asked the other two as well.
Yes.
What is your advice to people? What would you advise people to do in fighting this pandemic treaty and the amendments from the World Health Organization?
Try to understand what is really in these international health regulations. They are not just technical recommendations. They are providing the competence to WHO to define our lives, to define the status of law we have, to define the information we will get, and also to define the products that we will be bound to take, no matter how experimental they ever are, and they do not contain a mechanism to protect our human rights. So you can think of it as a Trojan horse that comes into the room in a nice appearance, under the disguise of being just technical amendments, but the content of it is toxic for our democracy. Once you have understood, bring out this message to your politicians. There are so many good homepages, so much good information that you can copy, download, and send it to your politicians and ask them the question, so how will you protect our democracy once there will be the monopoly of information by WHO? How can you protect our democracy once WHO declares that the sole solution for getting out of a new pandemic will be such and such? How will you protect your people? You will not be any more capable to protect our democracy. So protect it now and stop these negotiations, never sign it, because you are the safeguard of our democracy, of our constitution. And also ultimately demand that you, the people, be involved, that you be informed, that there be an open, true debate, so that everybody understands what is truly the content. Get involved and never accept this calling names of conspiracy theorists. Whenever you hear that, tell the people, are you running out of good arguments? Is that the only thing you can say after 4 years, conspiracy theorist? This is poor, and this is an example of avoiding democracy.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Rebecca. Thank you for your work.
Thank you.